So I'm making a quick video right now, a really short one. I really hope it's a short one. In this, I'm going to discuss um, a little comedy that is taking place, a comedy of errors maybe, that is being facilitated in the uh, A-level system. For years, I've been observing it, and I've been quite frankly appalled by this trend. And I thought that today I'll just make this quick video and discuss this with you. Uh, there is a branch of knowledge which studies knowledge itself, and that branch of knowledge is called epistemology. So, epistemology, when we talk about epistemology, it simply means a branch of knowledge in which we study knowledge itself. So where does knowledge come from? How do we rank knowledge? What is the function of knowledge? I mean, everything related to knowledge itself is studied in this particular field. Now, in epistemology, there is a basic precept. And the precept is that, look, knowledge is, if we break knowledge down into levels, then knowledge can be broken down into four broad general levels. Okay, this is not the only available classification, but it is a simplified classification which helps us understand which branches of knowledge can be considered lower order and which branches can be considered higher order knowledge. So please do keep in mind that there was a time when the subjects that we know today, they did not exist as we know them today. For example, there was no physics, there was no metaphysics, there was no, at one time, there was no chemistry. Everything was compressed in one huge body of knowledge, which was called philosophy. Philo means love, and Sophia means wisdom. So people who were after wisdom were considered philosophers. And in the process, what happened was that they discovered answers to many, many questions, and things developed into proper subjects which we today know as physics, chemistry, or whatever. So I think it was Aristotle, don't hold me to it, but it was Aristotle who wrote something, and it was a treatise, it was a book. And in those days, there was no, of course, there was no printing press. In Europe, the printing press came only in the 16th century. So Aristotle used to take his writings to a person who used to write them for him physically by hand. So he took it, and the person said, "Okay, you leave it with me, and I'm going to write it down for you, and make copies of what you've written in good hand, and you can take it from me for after a certain period of time." So he was busy writing some other books, some other pieces. So he kept Aristotle's book on one side and wrote on it metaphysica. Metaphysica means above physics. So his physics papers were down, and above them were Aristotle's writing. So when Aristotle came back after a few months and his book was ready, the publisher, if you want to call him the publisher, he said, "Aristotle, I didn't know what to call your book. So I simply wrote on it Metaphysica. So you tell me now what the name of the book is." And he said, "It's the absolute correct name. You've given it the right name. I didn't write a name on it because I couldn't think of a name. So this is Metaphysica, and that's where metaphysics developed." So that's how subjects developed. They were all offshoots of philosophy. Later on, a classification was made of knowledge. Okay, so what is a lower form of knowledge? The lower form of knowledge was that knowledge where it was possible to prove everything beyond any doubt, not reasonable doubt, beyond any doubt, through an experiment, or let's say in a laboratory. So these sciences, or these bodies of knowledge, were called They were called empirical knowledge. So, what is an empirical field of study? An empirical field of study is one in which there is no disagreement between people on what a certain thing is. For example, if I say this is one, okay, so if I take it to the North Pole, or I take it to the South Pole, or I take it to the United States, or I take it to America's great friend Iran, they will all say, yeah, this is one. There's no disagreement. Even between enemies, there's no disagreement on the answer. No one will say, in my expert judgment and in my opinion, water should be H3O. No, water is H2O, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. There's no disagreement on that because we have proved through experimentation that water is H2O. So there's no disagreement because we have proved it objectively through experimentation. This is the lowest branch of knowledge because here all answers are available without any doubt. So the room for intellectual pursuit or intellectual exertion is almost exhausted. There is a lot of logical exertion. There is a lot of application of the existing knowledge, but the search for knowledge is almost non-existent. Of course, innovation are possible based on the laws already discovered. So this lower form of knowledge includes fields like physics, chemistry, biology, in which all answers are well known. Please keep in mind, this is not to demean any subject or the importance of any subject. It simply means that the room for intellectual pursuit and the room to perform and create as far as the laws of the subject is concerned is very limited. So this is the lower form of knowledge. Then comes a higher form of knowledge. The higher form of knowledge, or a higher order uh, um, collection of subjects, is called. So from the empirical knowledge, we move to a higher form of knowledge called rational knowledge. Now, in rational knowledge, you can have some positive statements, but you can also have a lot of normative statements. You can have a situation in which you have your opinion, you have your conclusions, you also have your arguments, you also have your claims. And in order to make those claims, sometimes people take very rational positions, sometimes people take empirically proved positions, but sometimes they can proceed from their own value judgments. And the problem with a value judgment is that when your premise is based on your value judgment, then the conclusion reached on the basis of that value judgment is always correct for the person making the argument. Now, that is definitely a higher form of knowledge because people's normative approaches may differ. People's empirical approaches in such subjects may also differ because they may have had different experiences with the same phenomenon. For example, a person sleeps under a tree and he interacts in a very different way with the tree compared to other people. He sleeps peacefully under a tree. So his conclusions about a tree are very different from a person who was playing or who was working under the tree and he was bitten by a snake. So experiences, value judgments, they all lead to reasoning, and based on that reasoning, certain arguments are made, and based on those arguments, certain conclusions are reached, or sometimes the arguments are left just to the level of claims. The thing is that in such subjects, the room to perform is extremely high. The room to research is extremely high. Different theses can be developed, different positions can be taken on the same phenomenon. And then some strange phenomena develop in such sciences. So, what are examples of such sciences? Economics, sociology, psychology, business, um, and other fields, maybe bioethics, maybe international relations, maybe international affairs, maybe a subject like political economics. So all these subjects have a lot of room for the person to perform, because the real content of these subjects is not the conclusion, but the pursuit of the conclusions by different people based on different premises that they must have developed. And even in a subject like um, even in an area where wisdom is everything, wisdom is the greatest gift to man. God's greatest gift to man is not freedom. It's not, of course, it's not wealth. It's not even knowledge. It's not even experience. It's not even the pursuit of pleasure. The greatest gift to man is wisdom. Those who can be wise can be successful through and through in this world and the next. But even something like wisdom needs to be contextualized in its circumstances. So, if you are unable to contextualize the knowledge which is available in these subjects, despite being excellent subjects, the body of knowledge will fail to provide the required answers for human progress. Take the example of economics, for example. We've not had a single great economist in this country since 1947. And what is the reason? Are there people who do not know economics? No, they do, but they forget the context. They forget the context that economics, being a social science, developed in a different situation in Europe. All the things that were there, all the context of Europe was very different from the context of Pakistan or the context of India. And even the context of India and Pakistan may be very different. So, what you need to do in such a subject is you need to develop a body of knowledge, and then people can study that body of knowledge and come up with the answers. The same is true of something like sociology. Look at the sociologists, look at the classical sociologists. Do you do you see something? Do you see something there? Do you see a trend? Yeah, I see a trend. Look at these sociologists. Look at Durkheim. Look at Marx. Look at and of course Alexis de Tocqueville, who's not taught in A level, because right now I'm talking in the context of A level. So they don't teach him for some reason. They don't like him. How can you teach sociology without Adam Smith? And I've seen books where Adam Smith is simply missing. You cannot have sociology or economics without Adam Smith. So, but what is the thing that is common among them? Number one, they are all Europeans. Number two, they are all men. Number three, they are all Western Europeans. So that is the context in which sociology developed. Now you cannot just put that sociology, take that sociology, uproot it from one, and then all that happened in the wake of political events and social upheavals in Europe. You cannot just take that and sort of force it upon a society which developed in a very different which developed in very different circumstances and had very different context, like our society. So we are virgin territory for sociological research. Look how look how the first book in Europe on sociology was written. Suicide. Look at suicide. Suicide is a completely psychological concept. I mean, if you talk about suicide, it's psychological, but it was pursued, it was studied, it was just given a new angle, because wisdom that was there, it was now studied from the sociological perspective. And at that time, no one could have thought that suicide could have been studied from a sociological and not a psychological perspective. So even though psychology developed in 1876, and it was a young science at the time. Anyway, so coming back, So what we want to say is that the lowest order of knowledge includes empirical knowledge, which is physics, chemistry, and biology. And by the way, in my experience, a person who is good at physics is an excellent candidate for a subject like economics, because logic is at the root of all rational sciences, and no subject gives you logic. No subject sharpens your ability to apply logic like physics does. So we are not saying here that by being lower order the subject is less important. No, subject is very important. All we are saying is that the room for intellectual creativity is limited by the presence of certain and positive answers. That's all we're saying. So lowest order, empirical knowledge. Upper order, rational knowledge. In empirical knowledge, everything can be proved in the laboratory, or everything can be proved with certainty. In rational knowledge, we can only prove things with reasoning, and because different premises exist, different conclusions can be reached about the same phenomenon. Then comes the next level. The next level is philosophy. Despite the fact that philosophy gave birth to all these sciences, it has not gone out of vogue. It is not a dead thing. Why? Why is it not dead? Not because it has a lot of literature, not even because it has methodology. In fact, sometimes philosophy can be a bedlam, but a very organized bedlam. So what makes philosophy so relevant? Philosophy is relevant because till this day there are certain questions that have no answers. Where did we come from? Where are we going? What is beauty? What is art? What is aesthetics? Why do we want aesthetics in the first place? What is happiness? How free is man? All these questions beg answers as desperately today as they did 2,000, 3,000 years ago, in the time of Socrates, in the time of Plato. So as long as there are questions without answers, philosophy will be alive and kicking. As long as there are people who want to make sense of the world and their place in the universe, philosophy will be alive and kicking. So this is the higher, even higher than rationality, because it has a lot of room for questioning. Uh, and then, so empirical knowledge, rational knowledge, philosophical knowledge, and above all comes faith. So Kant said, I had to give up rationality because I wanted to make space for faith. Now, that is true of all religions, except, of course, our religion, which challenges man to use his intellect in all matters rational as well as religious. But whatever it is, one thing is certain, that whichever religion you're following, faith is the highest form of knowledge. I believe it was Democritus who had faith, who believed, who started believing that in the basic structure of water there are two particles which are attached to one larger particle, and he actually drew those diagrams. How did he know that? Where did it come from? No one knows. Maybe there are things in cosmic dust which connect with us, which challenge us to think, which challenge us to conjure, which challenge us to uh, apply ourselves to the point where we come up with answers, where we come up with the right questions, and then challenge ourselves to answer those questions in a way that today if you take a glass of water and you pass x-ray through it, you will see what water is composed of, and those pictures that will appear, those images that will appear from an x-ray are they bear an uncanny resemblance to the pictures, to the diagrams that were made by Democritus. So, likewise, where does in mathematics where does the value of pi come from? We don't know. Where does the value of theta come from? We don't know. We don't know. People just used these things from ancient times to balance equations and answer mathematical questions and solve scientific problems. And the answers turned out to be right. They had faith. I mean, this is a very different kind of faith. It's faith in answers and it's faith in formula. But faith, of course, rises to a much higher level. Man has never denied the existence of his creator. The intellect never does that. In fact, the great thing is that you need proof for things you don't see. But those who deny, they bring proof for why they believe they are just a phenomenon, a natural phenomenon, and an immaculate conception, whatever they believe they are. So then there are four levels: empirical knowledge, rational knowledge, uh, philosophical knowledge, and faith. In empirical knowledge, there are certain answers, objective, undisputed answers. In rational knowledge, there are answers, but they are disputed. In philosophy, there are only questions, no answers. And in faith, there are only answers, no questions. So, where did I come from? God created Adam from a lump of clay, and he blew life into him, and that's where we came from. Finish. No questions asked, only answers given. So this is an excellent hierarchy of knowledge, if you want to call it. Now, the interesting thing that's happening is in the education system today is when a student starts performing badly in the empirical sciences, in the lower order sciences, he is kicked up to do subjects like sociology, economics, and business. Subjects that require a much higher level of rationality, analysis, evaluation, and personal judgment, and informed judgment as compared to the lower order subjects like physics, chemistry, and biology. Just think about it. Isn't it a comedy of errors?